We're going.
We're recording now, Chair Richmond.
All right. Yeah, I heard it. Thank you. Okay. Well, first, we need a motion to conduct the meeting by electronic means. So that's our first order of business. Can I get such a motion?
I'll do it. I move that items on the meeting agenda constitute essential business of the board. Meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans considering the COVID-19 outbreak, and any rule that conflicts with Governor's Executive Order 16 permitting electronic meetings be suspended.
I'll second. Critique Dash will second.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Dash. Does any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Say no.
Chairperson, please.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, who is that?
This is legal counsel with Metro Legal. Under the current governor's order, it now mandates or requires that all votes be taken by a roll call method. So I apologize for that, but each person needs to state their name and whether they vote yay, nay, or abstain.
Chair Richmond, this is Mel. Would you like me to assist by going down the list?
Yes, thank you. I was about to ask if did I need to do that, but if you're volunteering, go right ahead. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Commissioner Tran?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Pryor?
Aye.
Commissioner Vennick?
Aye.
Commissioner Mohammed?
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Aye.
Commissioner Pretorius?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes.
Chair Richmond? You there? Okay. Commissioner Abolflazi? Miriam?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner Dash?
Aye.
And did I miss anyone?
Commissioner Mann is on the phone.
Well, hello, Commissioner Mann. And what's your vote?
Aye.
Great. Anybody else joining by phone? Okay. Are there voting nay? How do we do, council? Okay, go ahead, Chair Richmond.
You did fine.
So I detect the motion passed. So, okay, so moving on, as you heard as we went through the roll call, we have a new commissioner, Dr. Ben Tran. Welcome. We'd like to give you a minute quickly to introduce yourself to the rest of the commissioners. So welcome, Commissioner Tran.
Unmute.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here and the time to introduce myself. My name is Ben Tran. I live in the Edge Hill neighborhood, and I'm quite active in it. Everything from community gardens to public parks to public housing, affordable housing, working for the right public-private partnership, if there is one, and historical overlay and so forth. My daytime job is I work on the history of race, empire, and colonialism in Southeast Asia and Asia more generally speaking, and in the United States. And I teach in Asian Studies and English at Vanderbilt. And it's a delight to join all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome again. Next, we have the review and approval of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out one mistake if possible. I think at least a mistyping on the page 3 under director's report. The first bullet, I think it should be the word employ instead of employee. And that was all I saw.
Okay. Did somebody get a note of that?
Barbara is on with us, and we will make note of that. So the motion could be made with that recommendation.
Okay. Well, then can we get an official motion to approve the minutes with that correction?
I say so moved. Am I allowed to say it that way?
Commissioner Dash.
Here a second.
Yeah, Commissioner Dash second, and I will go ahead and start the roll call by saying aye.
And Chair, would you like me to go through it again?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yep, great. Okay, Commissioner Tran?
I abstained because I wasn't there. But
Thank you. Commissioner Pryor? Commissioner Vennick? Commissioner?
Aye. I was on mute.
Okay. Okay, and Commissioner Mohammed?
aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Aye.
Commissioner Pretorius?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
And Chair Richmond?
Aye.
Commissioner Abul Fazli?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller? Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
And Commissioner Mann?
Aye.
Okay. Have I missed anyone? All right, back to you, Chair Richmond. I think the governor did this, so we'll all stop having meetings.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Hopefully, they'll get that vaccine out soon, and we won't have to keep doing this too much longer. So next up, so I guess the motion passed. Next up, we have the financial update from our executive director.
The update is that we don't have a great deal of update. We are still within budget, on track. But what I do want, I want to sort of table any further financial conversation until after my mid-year meeting with finance, which is set for this Wednesday. So I will report back to you all on that meeting and what I learn about what we can anticipate for the next fiscal year after that meeting.
All right. Thank you very much. Next up, old business, Just Conversations, community book reading.
Chair Richmond, can I recommend that we move the old business until after new business to accommodate some guests in our meeting today? Because their presentation falls under new business.
Sure. Okay. Well, in that case, we will skip over directly to new business. We have a guest presentation from the Safer Schools Initiative. So do you want to introduce the individual members?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. Today, we are joined by Emma Crownover and Matt Tolbert, who are members of Safer Schools Nashville, and they contacted our office to ask if there was an opportunity to talk to this commission about their initiative and the work that they're doing. And after having discussed it with Chair Richmond, we've invited them today. I'm going to let them take it over. They've sent me a PowerPoint presentation to share with you while they were talking. For any members of the public who are listening and not attending by video, that presentation is available right now, uploaded on our website. So you can open that and follow along. Matt and Emma, you with us?
We are.
Yes.
Are you able to share the PowerPoint deck on your screen for everybody to see, or are they just going to follow along with it on their own computer?
I can share it. Hold on.
Great.
Can you see it?
Yes.
We can. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Well, hello. Thank you so much, Melody, for introducing us. I'm Emma. I'm an MNPS graduate, class of 2017, and also a Safer Schools Nashville team member. And I just wanted to first thank you all for taking the time to learn more about our work and share your space with us. You can go to the next slide.
Great. And my name is Matt Tolbert. Again, thank you so much for having us here today. We really appreciate it. I'm also a 2017 alumni of MNPS, and I will start by introducing Safer Schools Nashville. Our mission is pretty simple. We are a team of recently graduated MNPS students working towards alternatives to school resource officers in our schools. Safer Schools Nashville is committing to advancing the social, emotional, and intellectual development of all MNPS students. And for those who may not know, school resource officers are fully armed and sworn officers of the Metro Nashville Police Department that are stationed full-time in our public schools. Oh, next slide, please. Sorry. Thank you. So now for some goals and contexts. While ineffective in preventing school shootings or deterring crime, school resource officers disproportionately refer Black students and students of color to the criminal justice system, which has both pervasive and negative impacts on their educational and emotional outcomes, and is ineffective in keeping them in school, learning, and safe. What we're seeing here in Nashville and across the country Are SROs being used for routine disciplinary issues, like cursing in school or running in the hallways? Students, overwhelmingly Black, brown, and disabled students, are being referred to a criminal legal system that, for example, a student at Montgomery Bell Academy or the University School of Nashville would simply get sent to the principal's office or detention for. There is scarce evidence that school resource officers are effective in preventing violent incidents in school or keeping violence out of school. All of this is costing taxpayers upwards of $9 million a year. And included in this is a graphic illustrating that 77% of students referred to law enforcement and MNPS are Black. And this is despite the fact that Black students only make up about 40% of students in Metro Nashville public schools. Next slide, please. Thank you. So there's a massive opportunity cost here, but fortunately there are also alternatives. Nearly 10% of MNPS students attend schools that have police but no counselors, and our district-wide student to counselor ratio is 325 to 1, well above the recommended ratio of 250 to 1. Data from the American Civil Liberties Union shows that school staff that provide health and mental health services to our peers not only improve the health outcomes of those students, but also improve overall school safety. At Safer Schools Nashville, we define school safety as a healthy environment that prioritizes learning, healing, and wellness. SROs are not the most trained or economical tool for the safety of our students. Safer Schools Nashville only asks that our city's elected officials and governing institutions are intentional, equitable, and informed when prioritizing the safety of our students. The best part of this work is that we don't have to think very hard about what police-free schools look like. Several metro high schools, including Glencliff, Pearl Cone, and Hunters Lane, have student-led peace teams that are trained in restorative practices that are demonstrated to make schools safer and keep students in the classroom learning. Next slide, please.
Our community partners. As you can see a list of a lot of the people that we've been working with around the city on this initiative, but I just wanted to highlight a few, piggybacking on what Matthew just talked about. So Gideon's Army, as well as the Oasis Center, facilitate some very successful restorative justice programs that are working today in the MNPS schools. And just to get a little bit more specific, after the first peace team and restorative justice team began in Glencliff in 2014, Glencliff saw a significant drop in out-of-school and in-school suspensions, and now leads the district in student voice, and have essentially transformed the way that conflict is resolved in their school. On the other hand, there's other initiatives like Passage, which started in 2015 to address the same issues of school discipline numbers and disparities. They took the approach of redoing a lot of the language and policies of the MNPS handbook. However, they were not also equipped with the tools and funding to fundamentally change how we address school discipline. And so while there was not this ability to invest in additional adults and also additional training for teachers and administrators, when Passage attempted to address these issues, it actually increased the disparities because they did not have the funding or the tools to actually make substantial change. And that's where we want to continue this project of addressing these horrible discipline numbers. Next slide, please. And so that takes us to our current project, which is publishing a research report. And we have sort of roughly drafted the title as The Case for Police-Free Nashville Public Schools, Reinvesting in Evidence-Based School Safety. And so one of the goals of our report is to document and quantify with data as well as testimonials on the harmful effect of investing in the city budget into employing an armed and sworn police officer in every middle and high school in the district. However, and more importantly, we want to highlight the advantages to divesting from school policing and reinvesting in non-punitive alternative practices, restorative justice training for teachers and administrators, and sufficient employment of mental health staff, counselors, mentors, and nurses. Some of the research questions that we'll be asking as we are producing this report are there significant disparities in our schools? How does policing affect student achievement, well-being, and future success? And what are these alternatives to punitive discipline practices? What is their effectiveness compared to policing? How have other cities and districts divested from school policing? And what successful alternatives already exist in MNPS today? Next slide, please.
Great, and I'll just be rounding things off here. So we hope that some of what we've said today has struck a chord and that you'll consider joining us and taking next steps to make our schools safer and more equitable. These next steps fit broadly into 3 buckets: research, political action, and coalition building. We can use all the support we can get in research and obtaining data on discipline disparities and their consequences in MNPS, as well as connections to folks that might be interested in being interviewed for the case study section of our report. And these folks are can be either young people or adults who have been suspended or expelled from during their time in MNPS or otherwise had a encounter with the police while in school. Second, our goal is to make this a budgetary issue in the upcoming budget cycle for fiscal year 2021. Metro Council, as we all know, sets the budget, which in turn funds school resource officers. In short, we would like to see that money going towards supporting students and educators. And recall that school resource officers are employed by the police department and not MNPS. Lastly, we need your help to bring this message to parents across Nashville. We believe that parents will embrace this mission once they see that this is a better use of their tax dollars and that students thrive in schools that prioritize their learning and wellness. Our goal is not to scapegoat the department. Our goal is simply to disentangle police from non-police issues. And we firmly believe that everyday functions of our schools are not a police matter. And this is particularly in response to some recent recommendations by the Police Commission, which recommends a rather drastic increase in the use of SROs in upcoming school years. And remember that students are going to be returning to school in person after not learning in a classroom, physical classroom, for over a year. And we think that there's going to be so much that these students need other than more punitive disciplinary practices. They need social, emotional, and academic support. And last slide is just sort of a conclusion there, but we're happy to take questions from y'all now. And again, we want to extend our heartfelt thanks to Melody and all of you for taking the time to listen to our message today.
Mel, am I allowed to ask a question or two?
Yes, absolutely. I think we'd like to open it up for questions by commissioners. So go ahead, Commissioner Pryor.
I have sort of like a two-framed question. My first question would be actually to Commissioner Linda Robinson and for all of us that were a part of the commission. And I think it was 2019, Linda, if I'm correct, where you brought all of this information to us and there were supposed to be changes made. I felt like we supported some movement on this where I don't remember, but I thought it was at least happening in elementary schools and middle schools and maybe also being implemented in high schools. So I wanted to kind of see where we were in regard to, I didn't realize that we were like, I thought that was a movement that was a good thing and that had already sort of happened. And it sounds to me like what I thought was occurring in that process and what we were sort of hopeful about maybe hasn't come to play. I don't know, Linda, if you can answer that. And then my other part of that after Linda maybe chimes in, if you all will bear with me afterwards, I want to ask you a couple questions about the research part of this, but I'd like Linda to address it if she's still with us. I have a small screen, so I can't see.
So yes, what I brought to you was an initiative of both Passage and NOAA at the time, NOAA's Criminal Justice Task Force. And we were working on and successfully made happen the rollback of more punitive discipline practices in the parent-student handbook. It's what we were working on. That was under the previous administration. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That was my bad. I did not mean to interrupt you, but it wasn't the actual removal of these resource officers, correct? It was
No, we were working on policy changes to
That's
the
what I thought.
student
Okay.
parent handbook for MNPS. That was under the previous administration. Now, this administration actually came in and successfully rolled back 95% of the changes that we made to the handbook, which we are continuing to work on rolling back the rollback of those changes to the handbook at the current time. Young people are working on removing SROs from the middle and high schools.
Okay.
Now, my question to these young people, if I can I ask a question, Erin?
Sure.
All right.
Clarify.
My question at this point is, you're going to the council asking for the money to be diverted from the police department to the schools for what purpose? I mean, what are you asking for to happen in the place of these SROs?
That's a really good question. So what we're hoping to do is see more support for programs that actually already exist in some metro schools. So one of the best ones that we always like to highlight is the Glencliff Peace Team. This is which Emma, I think, can speak to more because she facilitates our working relationship with that group. But we want to see professionals trained in restorative practices and mental health therapies to assist our high needs learners and our more vulnerable learners in MNPS rather than removing them from the classroom. And this is both removing them through the use of SROs, but we're also concerned with the removal of students from classrooms and putting them in things like out of school and in school suspensions. And I'll pass it off to Emma to talk a little bit more about some of those alternatives.
Yeah, so at MNPS, there is a restorative justice off. It contains 4 people that are in charge of facilitating restorative justice for almost 90,000 students. And so we're asking, as many of us already know, the school board proposes a budget and they never get the full budget. And the first thing that is always cut is going to be social emotional learning. So whether that's training for teachers and administrators, or that's having additional staff like a restorative justice facilitator, someone who's trained in this in the building at all times, as well as that funding that we're talking about reallocating would go to things like getting our school psychologist ratio down to what the recommended ratio is, and having more nurses in the schools, and having all of these trained professionals in place of a trained professional that is a police officer. We just think that there's a better way to be spending those funds.
I was just gonna say, first off, props to y'all. When I graduated from high school and 3 years after that, I was thinking about how I was gonna find a girlfriend and whatever, and not thinking about how to make the city better. So props to you guys for that. I think there's 2 things that I would just want to mention. One being, I do totally agree that students of color, especially Black students, are probably more disproportionately affected by these issues. But in the research, if you all can, to think about other ethnicities as well, like students who are undocumented, who may be afraid of ICE and how they view SROs, if that can be factored into the research, I think that's a huge help. And then I think my other piece of feedback would just be, I think kind of playing devil's advocate, what you're going to get is people are going to say, well, how do we keep our schools safe if there are no SROs, right? I think that there's a public perception that if there's an SRO in the school, that the school is safe. And so you all may not have the answer now, and you might, but just thinking about, how you all can combat that narrative so that way you can say school's still safe and we're keeping kids in school. I think that would really help me be able to push this out to my networks.
And I'm going to piggyback on that to say that I'm with Noah. So I know that you all are working with the Criminal Justice Task Force on this issue as well. But my question is, my suggestion is, Or are you working on relationship building with the school board at the current time? Because they're eventually the ones that's going to have to support the budget for these resources that you're asking for. So at the same time, are you partnering with groups around advocating for budget line items to support these resources in MNPS? Because that's what normally happens. It gets cut at that point.
So
Yes.
sorry, I can go. So back in, I think it was July, we hosted a forum with the school board candidates that were running. And so since then, we essentially have gotten some of their support on this specific ask, and their biggest reason that they weren't 100% ready to like cut their memorandum of understanding with the police department was this fear that they would not then get that money. And so they see an SRO as just another adult in the building that's supporting teachers in some way. And so it's not safe for them to just say, we're just going to get rid of this person and not have that funding guaranteed. And so now we have pivoted to addressing the police department and have a meeting tomorrow with Deputy Chief Loki as being facilitated by the NOAA Criminal Justice Task Force to basically get all of the different stakeholders involved, whether that's the council and the PD as well as the school board.
You know, following up on that, and I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing on this. It seems to me that you need to work towards having a concrete proposal as to how you're going to replace the function of the SROs. And I would strongly urge you to engage with the PTOs, because parents are going to have to buy into this. If parents don't buy into it, you're going to have a really difficult time, given that the school board is elected by parents. So I think that this is a great start. I would urge you to fill in more of the details and get some more, to try to develop community support through the PTOs.
One thing I also wanted to add is that you might want to address the issue of current training for SROs, and are they currently getting any of this restorative justice training? You know, what is the level there? I mean, there may be some middle ground, you know, that in modifying the number of SROs in tandem with adding more training to their curriculum, and that maybe we might be ripe for that since we have the change in administration within the police here.
And just an additional suggestion, what the NOAA Education Task Force at the current time is working right now on SEL resources with MNPS administration as well as the school board right now. So if you can kind of, you know, get a handle on the exact resources that you all are looking for, we can add that to the list of resources that we're advocating for on behalf of the Education Task Force.
So Linda, I was wondering, could you give us some background as to why the recommendations that you worked so hard and so successfully on were rolled back? What was the moving force behind rolling those back?
When Dr. Adrienne Battle came in, that mandate of rolling back the handbook was in place when she came in. The teachers union, MNEA, attacked her when she came in, saying that it was an unfunded mandate in that they couldn't suspend the kids, but they also had no resources in the schools of places to send the kids as opposed to suspending them. So the teachers were complaining about the fact that there were no resources. And that's true, because that's what got cut from the budget that year. So that's why we're back now pushing for the changes to be turned around, as well as pushing for additional resources in the schools that can support the teachers and principals, as opposed to those punitive discipline mandates that they have in place right now.
I just want to chime in because I wanted to ask my second part of my question, but I also wanted to say, Linda, first of all, thank you. And please reach out to me. I'm only a commissioner for a couple more months because I'm at the end of my third year appointment. And I would really like to be involved in this. One of my dear colleagues also is on Hope Council. So maybe we'd be able to connect. You guys did such great work, including, if I remember correctly, from some of the policy changes, Linda, that you all were proposing, that included in that was in fact these alternative options for where they could put these kids. However, it seems to me that in that shift of representation or whatever it was that ended up rolling it back, they hadn't implemented that yet. Like they had agreed upon it in this way, from what I'm understanding in the handbook, but they didn't actually implement the changes that would be necessary to follow those policies that I know were a part of what you brought to us and what we all encouraged you on. So I just want to offer up my help in any way that I can, particularly if I'm off of the commission. I don't want to be someone who is disconnected from this, because I find it, if you remember, I was completely appalled and shocked. And then as well, this seems like one of the more important things for children and humans of all the work that we do. The one thing I wanted to ask Emma and Matt, I believe, I'm sorry, Matt, you're not in my screen currently for whatever reason. I hope I got that name right. Is in looking at it, I'm sorry, I'm both an academic and a social scientist. So I just sort of need to get a hold of an understanding of two things. One is where this research that you're doing, because it seems to me that some of the research or the research questions, I mean, maybe it's a conflation for the purposes of this discussion, meaning that you've sort of shoved a lot of things into 3 questions as opposed to kind of breaking them up, which this is not a judgment in any way. It's sort of like a wondering of the way you're going to go about it. And furthermore, the first question, at least it seems as though you already sort of have that data. So what I'm wondering is if that's going to be a part of the reason you're doing the research, is to further uncover sort of the underlying more embedded natures of this. The other thing is that, again, I'm a scientist. And so I know, like, you know, when we do research, we have to get IRB approval, and you have human subjects. And it's not totally clear to me who those human subjects that you are wanting to access will be for a lot of this, this research. And so I kind of wanted to know what your, I guess, who and what would be making up your sample, because to some extent it would seem to me that it would, I heard you all say something about maybe previous students who have had interactions with police while they were a part of, you know, these schools and these policies. So it's just a little confusing to me as well, because you already said that there's the peace teams and that you'd like to see that implemented. So I guess I'm trying to see the nexus, and as well sort of the ethical follow through with regard to the purpose of this research, who you're going to be researching, and what you've done to be able to make sure that that this is something that can actually be utilized, given that it sounds to me like there's no way to get around human subjects. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm happy to address a lot of that. And you point out a lot of really important stuff there. And I study economics, so I'm like very much invested in a lot of these same concerns as you. So to start, we're loosely modeling this off of the Driving While Black report, and that we're trying to create a report that is going to be easily digestible and accessible by the public at large, because all the data that we're seeing, we're not having to really dig very deep with it. I mean, like, it is there. Everyone on the school board, everyone on the council who's done even the littlest bit of research or has lived in this city for any stretch of time knows the chasm that exists in these disparities. So we don't expect that to be a huge shocker to anyone. And all of that data is publicly available through the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights. And the reason why we're utilizing or hoping to utilize interviews and more qualitative analysis is because we believe that people are really moved by stories. And that is what was so moving and effective about the Driving While Black report, was because it put a human face to these kinds of harmful interactions that were happening.
100% agree. That's the kind of research I do. I do interviews. I do self-directed narratives. So and stories to me is everyone has a story, and the story is the most important thing. And when the narrative then becomes the data, you get a real understanding, and it's no longer, if done in a scientific manner, right? It's no longer just these sort of anecdotal things. It's actually through that process, it's taking things that are moving for people and people can connect to, but also doing it in a scientific way. So I am like amen to that, and high fives. And if I can help in any way, let me know. I just wanted to make sure that, so if I'm hearing you correctly, there's a difference between, like, let's say the first research question about disparities in school suspensions, because what you're saying is that data is available. So as an academic, that would be a part of sort of the literature review, or the what's already out there and known with regard to what needs to be looked at and seen, the underlying actions and implications of this, to then maybe change those disparities, right? Because what you're saying is you already have record of these disparities, essentially.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I chime in real quick? First of all, can you hear me? I just want to say thank you to both of you for doing this work. It's impressive. It's inspiring. And I agree with what everyone else is saying, the politics of this aside, the research and so forth. But one of the things I wanted to suggest in terms of the qualitative aspect is to look at the history of SROs. I mean, armed cops didn't just show up in schools since in perpetuity. So there has to be a reason. Typically, these are subcontracted. You can look at these records of the subcontractor of this through school records and so forth. And also to do piggyback off of other researchers who have done this. I'm sure there's a ton of body of literature out there that you can cite to do this. And so I would say that the qualitative aspect of it has already been done, a lot of it, and to follow the history of the timeline of all this. I'd be curious to know which schools had SROs first, and then when was this implemented widely later? Because the schools were, because of it.
Sorry, important to piggyback off of what Ben said. Hi, Ben. Welcome to the commission, by the way. I think that that's a really good way to also position this, because I do think that the reality here is that there's a lot of research about the history of this happening. And I actually learned a good bit of this in some ways through Linda, and Linda worked with one of my students who was in my methods class at the time, and she did this project. And so what I understand is that a lot of this was implemented and then has had further problems, but it was implemented by sort of, the construction of criminal as a lot of times Black faces and Black bodies. And so putting that into these sorts of schools, that then makes that, school the prison pipeline thing because of this happen. And so there's so much research in there that links back to obviously all the iterations, like Ava DuVernay and Michelle Alexander have talked about in all of these ways. So I think that this idea of the historical, but also the purposeful nature of the historical realities of that really lends itself to why this isn't just a disparity. This is systematic and problematic and racist in many ways.
I had a question for either Emma or Matt. I think it's a great idea that you're using best practices like the one you point out at Glencliff. And I just have a question about that. Are you saying that the program, the student patrol or peacekeepers, does that work in the absence of SROs? There are no SROs at Glencliff?
So SROs are still, oh, sorry, go ahead, Emma.
We're probably gonna say the same thing, but so at Glencliff, they do still have an SRO, as well as at Pearl-Cohn, which is a similar restorative justice program facilitated by Gideon's Army. However, since implementing those programs, specifically the one at Glencliff is a class, and so these students that are part of the peace team actually get credit for being a part of that team. But from what we've heard from the facilitators at those schools is that essentially the SRO at those schools now is obsolete. So he still works there, or he or she still works there, still has a job, still walks around the hallways, but there's not really a use for them anymore. And that's what's so inspiring about this work is there are alternatives in those instances teachers, administrators are not using the SRO for anything. They don't really have anything to do, but as well, the different disciplinary measures that aren't SROs like OSS, ISS have also dropped, as well as test scores and student voice, which is like a survey that students take every year, have gone up. And when student voice goes up in schools, that's basically means that students feel they have a say in what happens at their school. Achievement goes up like a few years later, but that's sort of the trend of it generally. So as a whole, student culture changed, but yes, the SRO is still there.
Okay, well, just to back up off of that, I want to encourage you to, when you think about the presentation of your argument, right now what I heard is eliminate SROs, but you really don't have an example of a success case in the absence of SROs. And that's going to be one of the biggest hurdles to get over when you present this to people who ask, how are we going to guarantee safety in our schools? So even that example, your best practice, there's an SRO there. So, and that SRO may support the work, even the fact that the SRO is there may support the work of that student group. So I just want to encourage you to think about that, how you present that argument, particularly when you say we want to eliminate and transfer the money from SROs to some other function.
That's a reiteration, Oscar. Your points are so great and are good for them to utilize as a way to sort of move forward. But I think it's also piggybacking on what Janice said, right? Was this idea of maybe being more about how can we be inclusive and teach these kinds of practices to the SROs that are there, and then also piggyback that or connect that with other programs in schools as opposed to eliminating SROs altogether.
If I may, real quick, and thank you everybody for all of this is incredibly helpful and heard. And I definitely think can do a better job of pointing out where, other school districts, other large urban school districts have done this and what we can learn from them. But one of the things I would ask, and not to make people reveal their age, but, especially to folks in here who are maybe over the age of 35 or 40, was there a police officer in your school growing up? And for 95% of people, the answer to that is going to be no.
I was going to say, Matt, if I can briefly, I grew up in Nashville, and I went to UFOG in the 90s, and there was no SRO in a lot of schools, and it was right around then that they started to put SROs into the schools, if I'm correct. And I just want to say, my colleagues have done a great job of giving you all the critiques and all the things you need to think about when you go out into the world and start to try to convince people, because I think everyone's dead on about what you're going to get back. Because I want to say I am amazed at your professionalism, both of you. I'm amazed at your radical change that you're trying to bring in. And I think you've got all that you need. If you can just incorporate some of this stuff, you're going to convince. There's a lot of skeptics in this, and it's a very traditional town. So I think everyone has really equipped you with the kinds of things you need to be prepared for when you go out there. But I am fully confident in you and your organization, because you've blown me away with how much you know and how much you've kind of preempted most of our questions with your own information and your own thinking. Just like
applaud,
full on go, and we're here for you, and I have full faith in you, and I'm here whenever you need anybody to talk about the 90s, high school in the 90s in Nashville, and any alternatives.
I want to second, third, and high five all of that. It's so true. You all, both of you are exceptional in your knowledge and your preparation and your professionalism. And I love the progressiveness. I think it's what we need. I think Linda probably would also be a great resource to piggyback with, as she introduced. But I as well, just as a as a professor of sociology, as a person who studies inequality, and as a person who does this kind of research, I just want to offer myself up as a resource to y'all in any way that you need. So keep in touch. I can give you my email and phone number separately from this. But I really want to echo everything that everyone said. Y'all are doing a great job. It's really remarkable. Thank you.
If I could chime in right here, I'm also have been impressed by listening to you. And just to keep the tension in it, I would challenge you to continue to be progressive, pushing the limit, because there is an assumption that the presence of SROs creates a safe school. And I think one of you made the point that I'm 60. There was not any SROs in the school when I was there. So just the idea of the presence of SROs, to me, does not mean that a school is safe, but that is our social narrative, that no, they keep the school safe. No, what they do is they do the same way police do on the street, is they are there when a violation happens. And I think that the presence of them when they're there, when the violation happens, is really where the core of the problem is. Two kids get in a fight. Now, when the SRO shows up, one of them could actually get arrested. So again, I'm encouraged by your work, and shoot for the moon.
And this also is reflective of, you know, social location, I mean, and districts and all of those sorts of things. I mean, I grew up in Lillywhite, small town, Bexley. We are still in top 20 in the nation and top 5 in the state of Ohio for our public school system. I didn't even know that police would be in schools in the same way. So like that's a comparative to say Williamson County here, right? We're not worrying about SROs being in Williamson County schools. This is something that is also social location, geographics, etc. Related. And so it really is important not only for us to recognize the historical realities of this, but also the resource realities of this, and when and how those things become, you know, a reality is also dependent upon resource equipped versus resource deprived areas.
Can I just ask, first off, I already said this before, but y'all are fire. Get up. Is there anything else that you all need from us? Like, I think we've been giving you a ton of feedback or whatever, but other than like telling other parents and stuff, like what are some holes that we might be able to fill, that we might be able to help you with? And then Mel, let us know where we are on time. Like, I know we spent a lot of time on this, so if we need to cut this off and we can do this via email, let us know. But really quickly, Matt and Emma, if there's anything we can help you with, let us know.
Yeah, we definitely want to be mindful of your time. And once again, thank you so much for having us here. We so appreciate all of the feedback. In terms of next steps, yes, I think following up with anyone who's interested individually about tapping into your networks and getting us connected to parents, particularly in like organization form, things like neighborhood associations, so we can get that message out there, is going to be very valuable. And also like leverage, we're still learning about like how this body works within the metro government, but using your political leverage to push back against these assertions that our schools need more police officers, particularly when kids return to in-person learning, probably not until the fall of 2021, and really making this a budget issue going into the next fiscal year.
That's helpful. Yeah, Mel, just give him my contact. I'd love to talk to him more.
Did you say, I'm sorry, did you say you had one more question?
I did not. I think they're great. Y'all are great. I'm like saying they, like they're not in the room. You guys are incredible. Keep it up. Seconding everything positive that everyone had to say. Yeah.
Yeah, just pass along our information, however that's best to do, Mel, for those of us that are more than available. So whatever, you know, however that's.
Yes, I will be sure to connect these two with all of you guys, and I'll help them remember who's made specific offers of help to follow up. And I will continue to follow up with them on what kinds of support for the research that they're doing, that our office and or interns can provide for them.
So Mel, can I just ask one other question of them before they're gone?
Yes, please.
Yes, you all mentioned that you were working with Passage. There is a parent subcommittee actually with Passage. Have you all connected with them by any chance?
We have not. We have worked with Passage, but we would love to work with that group.
All right, I'm Linda Robinson. So Mel, if you could just note for him to reach out to me, I'd be glad to get you connected to that particular subcommittee.
Absolutely. So if there are no other questions, I too want to thank Emma and Matt, and now you commissioners can see precisely why after my meeting with them, I thought, well, I think you should come talk to my commission. So I just really want to thank you both. Continue the conversation with you and connect you guys. Thank you so much, both of you, for your time and for sharing your work with us tonight.
Thank you very much. Take care, y'all.
And you are welcome to continue to listen to the commission meeting. Will also not be hurt if you want to log off, but thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Matt and Emma. Excellent presentation, great discussion. I hope you all are successful, and I'm sure everybody who's willing to work with them will help them achieve their goals. I guess now we can turn back to old business. First item up is Just Conversations Community Book Reading.
Barbara Lardy, I know that commissioners certainly know her. Most of the community knows her as well. Barbara's our director of community engagement, and she has graciously agreed to give us an update on that project, because I have blissfully been ignorant of most of the logistics and have relied on my incredible teammates to lead on that project. So Barbara, you want to give us a quick update?
Okay. So it's been powerful. And I
No, you've had a long day. I believe was Commissioner Tucker and Commissioner Abou-Fazli involved? Yes. Any others?
Richmond as well.
Chair Richmond, of course.
Yes. They have been facilitating, they have been panelists. Literally, I'm still text as we speak from community members who either have participated or will be participating, and it's been pretty overwhelming in terms of very honest conversation. And I think the one of the hallmarks of this is it's not just a conversation; it's a platform for how we can move forward to really impact change. So that's the very quick version of where we are.
And Barbara, having recorded the individual conversations, so my understanding is we're going to start rolling that out in January, kind of like a serialized show, so to speak, with some media partners. So it'll go chapter by chapter, and then once we're done, then the entire body of that work is available to the public as well. Am I correct?
That's exactly right. And I also want to acknowledge the Nashville Public Library, the Downtown Library, who has been a very gracious and generous partner. As you all may know, the library has been closed because of the pandemic, but they have opened their space for us and been very vigilant about COVID concerns. And if any commissioners who, I think Marianne, David, any commissioners who participated, if you want to weigh in and have any thoughts, I know that I have personally received responses from your panels that were very, very encouraging.
Barbara, I just want to say I'm really impressed with what you guys are doing. I can't imagine how many moving parts there are, because just getting our panel together was crazy, and getting my panel together tomorrow was crazy, and there's a lot of people not really responding to the last minute, and you don't know if they're going to show up. So I just, hats off to you. I've also interacted with Mark more, I mean, if ever, than I ever have, and your team over there is awesome. He has been so responsive, so helpful. So it's nice to kind of understand the inner workings of MHRC, and I'm really impressed with it. Davey and Erwin were awesome to talk with today. Erwin facilitated, and really it was really an awesome, inspiring conversation for me. So, and the location and the the film crew. So I just, this is really cool. It kind of came out of nowhere, but I think if we promote it and get it out there, it can be a really progressive move for Nashville to say, look, we want to be in the books talking about this, and diligently and intentionally, chapter by chapter, which is pretty intense. So I'm looking forward to my panel tomorrow, and just want to hats off to you guys. It's an organizational feat, I would say. So thanks a lot for including us.
And I'm not sure it's because I'm totally like,
And we will definitely be asking you commissioners to help us with that promotion. Certainly with the 17 folks who are at this table, and then of course all of the panelists who participated. I think that can reach a significant number of people in this city. And of course we have some media partners.
I just wanted to say, Barbara, I'm not sure how I missed any possibility of participating or helping you all out. Again, COVID has made me a crazy person. I haven't been in Nashville but like 2 months, maybe the entire since COVID started. So I apologize for if I've missed something, but if there's anything you need from me, obviously this is my area of expertise. This is where I do research. I'm teaching race coming up this semester. and I like to implement a lot of these newer things. But I think that any process of anti-racism, and I try to say to my that I walk the anti-racist walk every single day, but I do it with all the privilege. And so to understand the complexities of that as white folks is really important. But the other part of that is about racial consciousness that I think sometimes gets missed out of the conversation. And so, of course, the how to be an anti-racist text, I haven't read through it all. I bought it amongst others that I'm trying to utilize in other ways, but I'm certainly more than willing to participate or help or be a voice of any kind that I can. And I will definitely do any sort of publication with at least my students in race this semester to get them tapped in as well. But anything I can do, I'm sorry if I missed any of these opportunities, but I'm here for you. Barbara, you know me. You just catch up with me when you need. Thanks.
And if I may, I think that there's lots of good material that is being made available after our session this morning. Miriam and Reverend Tucker and I discussed Isabel Wilkerson's most recent book, Cast. And I think these things are raising very important questions, very important issues. And to the extent that we can have a very unique community conversation as you put together in this Just Conversations format, I think it would be very helpful for us to get out to the larger community and, again, express views from throughout the community on very important issues that affect human rights.
I'm also, Mel, I think I talked to you about this before when you were doing your systematic racism stuff. I have some resources. Some of them are more academic, others are. I mean, there's this great one by IU who's like, it's like white people on racism, and it gives like steps towards anti-racism. I will just pass those along to you as attachments for whatever use those resources are. Again, some of them more academic, some of them less so. And the only other thing I wanted to like kind of throw out there, because I think it's something that we should consider trying to participate in. And Ben, I have no idea if you have any contact with him, but Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, I believe, joined Vanderbilt's Africania Studies program. And so that is a person who obviously is, you know, and just his book just came out. I mean, not his book, one of his most recent books, but the most recent book just came out, and I actually randomly saw him. Honestly, it was like on, I don't know if it was like Skippin' or Shannon and Skip and Shannon on the Sports Network, but he came out and like threw down after like 10 minutes, and then his book was talked about, and I was just reminded that he had joined Vanderbilt's faculty. So any way that we could possibly connect with him to bring into this kind of conversation would also be kind of a gift, since he's local.
Well, and far be it from me to suggest doing another one right when our staff is in the thick of this one. And I just really have to give kudos to my staff. Like, absolutely. This team is incredible. Like, pulling off this kind of thing is humbling for me. So I think that this is a great model. And as Commissioner Vennick said, that, you know, this is a kind of project that we can replicate in other ways and continue to have these conversations. And so we'll be coming back to you all to participate in the next one. And Barbara, thank you so much. I know you worked all over the weekend and you worked all day today. So we deeply appreciate you coming and giving us that update. Thank you.
Do you have anything on the website about it yet? Do you have anything?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're developing all of the promotional material right now because we're not full until next month.
Very good.
We're just doing all the recording and editing right now.
Okay.
Congrats, Barbara.
All right. Thank you, Barbara, and I look forward to seeing you at my panel tomorrow morning. I think next up, let's see. Next up, we have the Consumer Financial Protection Initiative Grant Funded Fellowship.
Actually, we did skip one, but the Consumer Financial Protection Initiative update is very short. I'm working with our legal counsel on getting the contractual language with the grantor agreed upon, and then we'll take to Metro Council whatever we need to do to move the funds, or, you know, to move that grant responsibility to our office, and then I'll be able to hire a fellow for a year to work on that initiative.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have the year-end open conversation and planning. We've got 14 minutes.
Okay, but Chair Richmond, I know we don't have enough time for that. The one thing I do want some assent on, I had sent commissioners a draft of a letter that I am going to sign, letter of support for the human rights stakeholder process for the FIFA 2026 hosting application. I just wanted to let you all see the draft of the letter and to make it clear that I was signing it as the director. But if there were any concerns from this body, I wanted to hear them before I signed that letter and provided the letter of support.
I read it. I thought it looked great.
It also, I thought it was great.
Well, thank you. So if there are no serious concerns with the way it's worded now, I'm going to go with that. And I did also want to clarify that I have agreed that as this process goes forward, that we are going to stay committed to ensuring that human rights are at the forefront and respected in the event that Nashville is lucky enough to be able to host that event. So my commitment and our commitment goes beyond just the stakeholder engagement and signing the letter. We've been asked to stay committed to do some sort of benchmarking, assisting through that process.
Mel, the letter was terrific, and I feel like that initiative and engagement was at the forefront of that letter, which made it, I thought, that much more remarkable in the way in which you posed it. So, as our leader, thank you.
You're welcome, and I'll be excited to share the report that comes out of that committee with you all. And whether or not Nashville is selected as a host for the 2026 games, that report really I'm going to serve as a benchmark and a sort of an anchor for us to talk about the human rights challenges and the things that we're doing well and the things that we could do better. So it isn't just about the games, it's about the human rights, respecting the human rights of Nashvillians. Okay, and Chair Richmond, yeah, the year-end conversation, clearly it's very hard to have that in 11 minutes. But I do know that I've had a conversation with, a short conversation with Commissioner Vennick and with some others about following up on our policy recommendation related to an equity lens in our performance management for Nashville. And the use of an equity lens or other participatory forms of budgeting. And I want to give a short update. We've made the policy recommendation. I'm gonna continue to press it. But I would be interested in a conversation about ways of moving that. If we're not necessarily having the reception that you are looking for from the mayor's office, if we move that kind of policy conversation to council. But I'd be interested in your recommendations and commitments on that issue.
If I may, I would be interested in determining whether or not it would be possible for you and staff to invite members of the Metro Budget Committee to have insight, so to speak, as to how to utilize equity lens concepts. Because I think that unless we can demonstrate how this works and how it works in other communities, it's a nice soundbite, and it sounds, it has a nice ring to it. But like anything else, one needs to learn how to use the tool. Clearly, there are budget challenges that the city is going to be facing in the future. Whether that means there's going to be another attempt to have a resolution which places more limitations on council. But regardless, I mean, there's still significant amounts of resources that are available through Metro budget, and we need to be able to help the council understand how to measure how those resources have been used in a way that has been disproportionate in certain segments of our community. So I would encourage consideration of some training, some introduction, or some materials with committee so they can utilize it.
I appreciate that, and I think that having that kind of invitation come from both me as the director and our chair, I think would be very useful.
Well, I'm also in agreement with that. That I really think that equity lens that we've been getting around the edges of it for 2 or 3 years, and I really think, particularly with the budget crunch, it becomes even more critical. So I'm totally in favor of that.
And I make that suggestion recognizing that it would be a heavy lift in terms of resource allocation among our staff. I mean, that's, we have, you all do a great job in what you do, and there's lots of things to be done. Clearly, that's a major heavy lift. And so I say that with all due respect for what it is you're able to do including everything else that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
The other thing that comes to mind in terms of clarifying and making this, I don't know, somehow if it gets down to where we're just not being heard and this is not going anywhere, one of the main statistics that stayed with me from that report that Ashford shared with us at the beginning of the year, I think, or last year, was that 92% of managers in Metro are white men, right? So I feel like there's just several, we could even instead of I know the ideal way is to have them come up with the indicators that, what are the outcomes that we're trying to blah, blah. But if we gave them 2 or 3 examples, what if that number just goes down? What if we just say we want a 30% decrease, 50% whatever of that number, and a few others. I mean, this is worst case scenario, but if instead of if it stays an abstraction and it's something that they can kick down the curb, I wonder if we could just give them the 4 indicators most urgently that we'd like. So that's just a thought for when it comes to that point.
That's not a bad point. And actually, I think that there are several ways to incorporate the equity goals or to embed the equity goals. But, the clear recommendation that you all made, adopted at this point is, we have a performance measurement team now. And departments are reporting monthly on a range of performance metrics. And that is, to my mind, and clearly to your mind, you all adopted this policy recommendation. That is the perfect opportunity to embed some equity goals or to at least ask some questions in performance metrics that speak to a department's equity goals.
I agree, Mel, and thank you for that follow-up. But what Miriam's saying is a really easy, practical way for us to, before we even figure out how we can implement these things, how various places are, these quick asks of a certain percentage. I oftentimes am not one of those people who thinks that progress by rate X, Y, and Z actually proves anything, because if the outcomes are still inequitable, what have we really done? But I do think that it's so disproportionately high in regard to management, as Miriam was reminding us and pointing out, that maybe something like that is just a way to say, you've got to do something actively here that shows us that it isn't just about us figuring out how this equity lens is going to be, involved in all these processes and policy change and whatever, but that if in fact we put a requirement or ask for that to be demonstrated, that's at least a little bit of a show of faith, right? That they are committed to it, even if they don't yet have best practices or exactly know the way in which to implement this equity lens. I don't know. I just was really impressed by that idea, which often I'm not one who goes for that, but I really think that might be a way of at least demonstrating that there's an openness to actually engage more broadly. I don't know, but Miriam, I high five that potential opportunity. I don't know.
Well, I appreciate.
Mel,
Was someone else going to speak?
Mel, if I just raise this one issue, I know we're running out of time, but I'm sure that you're aware of the fines and fees report that came out. And I'd like to put that up on the table, something for us to look at that I really think that we can weigh in on and maybe even help move this some. We've been working on this for the last 3 years or so. And the other side of that, there's a little good news. The bail fund sued the city last February for what they call Rule 10B, where they take fines and fees from an individual's bond that they post. And we're trying to get a consent decree signed now. So we have prevailed. The federal court issued a injunction, and now we're just trying to agree on the language of the consent decree. And that not only does it have implications here in Nashville, but to any individual families who post bails, that fines and fees cannot be taken out of their money, but it even has implications across the other jurisdictions in the state. So I'd like if we could talk about the fine and fee schedule as we move forward.
Absolutely. And Commissioner Tucker, I'm really very excited to hear that. I heard that news last, did not yet know if it was ripe for public conversation. But commissioners who have served for a while now will remember that you all sent a letter to the courts asking for a change in the application of that rule. And this body's been very supportive of the change to the 10B rule. And so I'm super excited to hear that it's now going to happen. Thank you so much for all the work that you did on this. You and the partners.
No, I want to thank the commission also for weighing in, because I think all of that does matter. And that even though the judges refused, we were on the right side of history by saying that it was illegal. So I'm grateful for you all signing on to the letter.
I think I sent out the fines and fees report to you all earlier. I am going to resend it before our next meeting. I am also going to have some conversations with our partners who work on this issue. I'm able to pull out from that report and identify specific opportunities that I think that are movable, or that policy recommendations or practice changes are possible. And so I'll highlight those for you, and we'll have a deeper conversation at our next meeting. Before we go, I do want to say I can't believe, on top of what we're all working on right now, we also have a big event in 3 days. Most of it is, I think it's almost all recorded at this point, but that's our Human Rights Day celebration. I'm sad that we can't be in person. It's one of my favorite events that we do here. And we're honoring some really great people. But when we get off here, I'll resend the information to you all so you can register. And it'll take 1 hour on Thursday, which is in fact Human Rights Day. And it starts at 6 o'clock. It's from 6 to 7. And we're just, I'm really excited about the honorees this year. So I hope that you'll join us.
Pastor and so of course department this and other Mr. will be on time be personally so it's 6 to 7.
Very good. I we're just tossing a couple of things out, but I didn't know if you all saw, or maybe I'm late to the news, but Amazon funding the housing resilience fund for $2.25 million. So it's a grant program that applications will be open in December 14th for low people affected by the tornadoes as well as COVID related housing emergencies. And so that's 2.25 million.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Rodriguez, how much was that?
2.25 million, 2 million, yeah.
2.25 million? Okay.
2.25 million,
way
yeah.
more than that is all I want to say.
Oh, I know.
That kills me. That kills me.
I know. At least it is something. I probably funded most of that. I'm not just with my shipping alone. Anyway. No, but it's good. It's good. And I think, I just wondered that I just was going to ask too if there's, if there's a way to promote that, through what Metro, is that appropriate for what your website, might have links to and that kind of thing to get the word out to people?
Yeah, I think that is appropriate. I know that I am asked pretty regularly for housing resources. So I'm glad to point people to a possibly new resource.
Absolutely. I'll send you the link. I mean, you'll probably see it in the press, but I'll send you, I was kind of looking at the stipulation, the criteria for the grant.
And I don't know if this is appropriate on the agenda, but I wanted to give a shout out to Commissioner Ali for her efforts through her project, Millions of Conversations. If any of you have an opportunity to tune into any of those, I think one is coming up soon. It's really time worth spending. And also another community effort I think is worth looking into is Braver Angels. And to the extent you have an opportunity to engage in any of those conversations, I think it's, again, time well spent.
Chair Richmond, you still with us? Dr. Richmond?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, for some reason, I have to go back to the phone. I was trying to speak through my computer. But anyway, just prior to this meeting, I taped the greeting for the Human Rights Day event on behalf of the full commission. So I made the greeting on behalf of all of us. So I've already emailed that in. So they'll have that. So as I was representing us. We've already gone over time, but is there anything else that anybody wishes to add? If not,
send you all blessings.
did you give your director's report, or was that kind of folded into what you were talking about?
It's pretty much folded in, but I will also follow up by email with all of you on any of the other things that we're working on, which actually are quite a few. I recently sat on a panel for the government of Dayton, Ohio asked me to the mobile diversity seminar that we do as part of their police reform task force. And I mean, I could go on and on. Me and my staff, we did trainings and but I'll just do a written report and I will append that to the minutes of this meeting.
I wish Toledo would reach out to you, Mel. It's one of the worst in the country, not just the state of Ohio on that regard.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything else? Do we need to do a roll call for the adjournment, or can it just be by voice?
As chair, you may adjourn the meeting, actually.
Oh, well, I'll just say, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Anybody opposed at this point? Well, in that case, I declare us adjourned, and I guess this is our last meeting for 2020. We made it at least through this part of the year, and look forward to seeing everybody in the next year, which I hope will be a little bit more sane.
Blessings, grace, and good health to y'all. See you soon.
Happy New Year. Welcome, Ben. Glad to have you.
Yeah, welcome, Ben.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy New Year. Welcome, Ben. Good to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Bye.